Hello, from Trifle Productions with another Blender Quickie for beginners. And in this Quickie for beginners, we're going to recreate this flower in Blender. I know it looks a little bit complicated, but I'm just going to show you some easy steps to accomplish this goal. So the first thing we're going to do is open up a new scene. So File. Well, I'll open up a new scene actually. We're going to get rid of this cube here. I can't use the keyboard shortcuts deal because if for some reason this destroys or causes Blender to crash, which I don't know why that is. But back to the tutorial, you can do this technique in any version of Blender. It doesn't matter what it is. So I'm using Blender 2.82, but you can use any version you want. So we're going to delete this cube by pressing delete on our keyboard, and we're going to make sure that this particular add-on is on. This comes with Blender importing images as planes in Blender. So make sure that's on, and let's go to Edit, Preferences, and here we're going to type in Images. And once this option comes up, put a check in the box, and that activates this add-on. And the next thing that we're going to do is go to use the add-on, which is Shift-A. You can do Shift-A, or you can go to File. Let's go to File instead. File, Import Images as Planes. Let's click on that, and you can navigate to where you've stored a flower texture. What I'll do is I'll leave a link of this particular texture that I'm using in the description below the video. That way you guys can just follow along and not have to go to CG Textures or search online for a flower texture. But I'll leave this one on there. I'm going to navigate to where I've saved mine. Scroll down, and that's the one. And click on Import Images as Planes. We're going to change our viewport shading here to see what the texture looks like. And I'm going to left click on that icon, and that's what it looks like. We're going to rotate it so that it faces upwards. And do that you go R on your keyboard, Y -90, and left click to confirm that rotation there. And it's looking straight up at us. We're looking straight down at it, which is what we want. Next we want to do is subdivide our texture, because we're going to do some bending of this flower texture. So we're going to press Tab on our keyboard to go into edit mode. And then when this whole thing is highlighted in orange with these little orange points on the end, press W on your keyboard and click on Subdivide from the pop-up menu. And then from this menu, let's left click there, and then this option here, let's type or left click in that option there and type in 20, enter, and that looks good. Now we're going to press 7 on our keyboard to look at it from the top view, and then we're going to press A to deselect everything. Let's scroll up on our wheel. And what we're going to do next, we want to select the middle section of this mesh here. So we're going to press C on our keyboard, and it'll bring up the circle selection option here. And to increase it and decrease it, you scroll down. Excuse me, scroll down your mouse wheel. To decrease the size of your circle, select press or scroll up middle scroll option. A middle scroll wheel, I guess, on your mouse to scroll up to decrease the size of the selection. And we want to just select the middle section here. Let's left click once, and then right click to confirm that selection. And then from here, you can pivot like this. Hold down the middle mouse button and just kind of move your mouse around. But we're going to click on our move gizmo, so let's left click on that. And we're going to turn on our proportional editing, which is up here. The keyboard shortcut for this is press 0 on your keyboard, but sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, so I just always go up to this icon and left click. And then we're going to go into the right orthographic view, a right perspective, because you want to look at it from the side. So press 3 on your keyboard, the number 3, and switch it to the right orthographic view. And we're going to left click and drag on our Z-axis. I want to decrease the size of our circle there, And to do that, you have to hold down your left mouse button and scroll up on your mouse wheel, and that's pretty much helps you choose how much, how little you want your proportional editing to affect your image. So you want it to be around there. It's just eyeballing it. Just want it to be around there to make a little bit of a dip or a cave look to your mesh there, your image. And then you release your left mouse button, and then we've got that. And the next thing we want to do is we want to select the edges, all 4 edges of our image here, and we have to make sure that our middle selection has been taken off by pressing A. That's important. Sometimes you could forget that, and if we were to forget that and try to select the edges and move the edges, it would move the middle part too. We don't want that. So press A to deselect everything. Hold down Alt and Shift and left click in the middle of the vertices to select a row of vertices. Left click, and left click, and that's all you have to do for that part. Now the next thing we want to do is go to our side view again by pressing 3 on our keyboard, and we want to go back into object mode by pressing tab. Get out of edit mode, go back to object mode, and from here we want to duplicate this image, and we want to do that 4 times. So in order to do that, you press Shift D, left click, and click on our left click on our move gizmo, pull that up. And as we make these duplications, we want to kind of alter them a little bit so that they differ from the size and rotation of our original image. So press R on your keyboard, Z, and then move your mouse. That way this rotates. Let's split our window so we don't have to, so we can see it from the top view also. So you have to hover. Remember, hover over the edge there. Once it turns into a double-sided arrow, just left click and drag, and it'll divide your window. Now in this window we want to see what's happening from above, but keep this particular window looking in from the side. So press 3 on your keyboard again, and that's a pretty good rotation there. We want to press S to scale it down. We don't want it to be the same size as the original image. And then left click and drag on the Z axis again to kind of pull it closer to the original image, but not too close, but close enough. And that repeat this process 3 more times, or for the sake of this tutorial, let's do 3 to give it more of a fuller kind of a look. Shift D again, left click, drag up, R, Z again, and then rotate. Move your mouse around to rotate it, and S to scale it down a little bit, and drag it down again. So I guess that's 3. 1, 2, 3. So 2 more times. Shift D, left click and drag on the Z axis, scale down, RZ again to rotate it in a different rotation. Let's pull it down a little bit more, and then Shift D for the last time. Left click to accept the duplication. Left click and drag on the Z axis, S to scale, and RZ to rotate on the Z axis again. And let's turn off our outliner overlays and our gizmo overlay also. And even at this point, you can see that it looks like a pretty nice looking flower. So if you want to stop right now and just keep it at this, that's also an option. But we want to take this a little bit further and kind of give the middle part more of a bulbous kind of a look, more of a fuller, bulbous kind of a look to it. And that's why we had to keep our selection here in editing, keep the edges selected, because once we've done that, it's going to duplicate those selections throughout all the duplicated images. What I mean by that is this. For the top flower, we're going to turn this, we're going to kind of shrink this down and close it up. So I'm going to press tab on our keyboard. You can see that the selection that we made on the first flower on the edges is still selected, which is what we're looking for. And let's make sure our proportional editing is still selected, and it is. And we're going to scale this on the z-axis, or drag it on the z-axis, and scale it in. So left click and drag on the z-axis. Remember, you can adjust your proportional editing by scrolling up and down on your mouse wheel. And you just eyeballing this to make sure that, you know, it doesn't have to look perfect. Flowers, they look beautiful, but not all flowers. I don't think any flower has symmetrical petals at all. Now, snowflakes do, I hear, but flowers don't. So you don't have to worry about trying to make this precise, you know, giving it precise coordinates and things like that. Eyeball it, that's fine. And we're going to press S on our keyboard and then drag in on our mouse to kind of bring this in. Let's scroll up on our mouse wheel to give more of a bulbous look again. Scroll in and left click to confirm that. Let's press tab, get out of that. And you have this kind of a bulbous looking exterior, which is what we're looking for. Let's do the same thing to the next 3 petals, or 3 sets of petals. You don't have to click inside of your viewport in order to select the images. You can just click here. Click in the, what is this called anyway? This is called the display mode. Is that the display mode? Or view layer. Click in here to click on the different images. So let's left click on the next one. And we're going to do the same thing. We won't pull it in as much as the first one, but we want to, you know, kind of bring up the petals so that they kind of encase or engulf the first set of petals. So same thing, tab in edit mode. Make sure proportional editing is still on. Left click and drag on the z-axis to pull these up. And like I said before, eyeball it, that's fine. And then scale it in with the S a little bit. Tab, get out of edit mode. Go to your next set of petals. Tab in edit mode. Left click and drag on the z-axis. You can scroll up and down your mouse wheel. Whatever you feel is best for you in terms of the way you want your flower to look. It's fine. And scale in a little bit on the z-axis, or just scale in, just press S and drag in your mouse. And let's look at it on this side, and it's looking pretty good. And let's tab, get out of edit mode again, go to the last flower, because we're going to keep the first image of the petals the way they are, and the second to the last one will modify that. So let's left click on that image in your overlays panel. I'm going to call this overlays panel. Let's click on that, your layer panel, click on that. Tab in edit mode, left click and drag on the z-axis again, and S to scale in a little bit, and tab. Now the way this looks, this is in Eevee, but we want to have a better representation of this. It looks better in cycles. So we're going to go to our render properties, left click on that, turn this from Eevee to cycles, and turn on the GPU compute. And we're going to have a white background so we can see it a little bit better in our viewport. Left click on the world icon there, and then this box that says color, left click in that, and turn your image from, or your background world color from gray. Just left click about the top to white, and let's click or change our viewport shading to cycles while left clicking on this icon here. Left click on that, and let's see what we've got. Yeah, it looks pretty good. It looks really nice. Now you can see if you scroll in on your image, you'll see that it looks somewhat, I guess, I'm going to use the word gritty or gritty, G-R-I-D-D-Y. I know it's not an actual word, but you can see the grid on it. You can see the squares, so you want to get rid of that. So what we're going to do is left click on the first flower, scroll down with the mouse wheel, hold down shift, left click to select everything, and then press Ctrl J to combine all these images together. Ctrl J to join everything, and it becomes one. Then press W on your keyboard and shade smooth from the pop-up menu, and then you've got yourself a smooth looking flower. Now the last thing you want to do, you can make it the second to the last thing, but second to the last thing you want to do is make the stem. And the stem isn't hard to make at all. Let's pivot this so we can get a better view of this. You see, hold down Shift and middle mouse button, and let's pivot it a little bit so we can get a better angle of the flower. Let me see, let's turn like this and like that, and turn it to the side. Now it looks a lot better. Now we're going to make the stem of our flower, and that's not hard to do at all. Just use a tube. So press Shift A. From the pop-up menu, choose, let me see, cylinder. I call them a tube, but you can cylinder, tube, it's the same thing. Let's choose our mouse gizmo by left-clicking on that icon there. Let's pull this down, and we're going to scale it. Press S on your keyboard and just drag it in until it's roughly the size of a stem. Let's turn off our proportional editing. Oh, that's already off. I didn't know it was off, but if it's on, just click in there to turn it off. We didn't want it to affect the stems at this point in time. So left click and drag. And the next thing we want to do is press S so we can scale it on the Z axis. So S, Z, and drag up with your mouse. Now it might still look kind of thick. So if it looks a little bit thick to you, just press S on your keyboard again and scale it down again. Left click and drag on the Z axis. And we're going to kind of get a closer view of our stem here. So just scroll up on your mouse wheel and hold down on the move the view icon. Left click and drag on that. So we're going to get a bit better view of our stem. And let's change our viewport here. Let's turn this back to Eevee, because we want to be able to kind of reposition our stem at the bottom here. Let's kind of get a rough idea of where the stem is going to go at the bottom of our flower. Look at it from the top view. And the flower bottom is right there, so we're going to left click and drag on the Y axis, kind of eyeball it. And that looks pretty good. Now let's go into the side view by pressing 3. And what we want to do now, let's go back to a different viewport here. Let's go to the material viewport, because it helps us because our stem has no texture on it or color. So it kind of blends to the background a little bit too much. So let's just look at it from this viewport shading. And what we want to do now is we want to subdivide our cylinder here, or tube or cylinder, so we can bend the stem. And to do that, make sure that your stem or your tube or your cylinder is selected, and press Tab on your keyboard, and then press Control R on your keyboard. You'll see this little yellow circle come up, and that's only one subdivision. To get more subdivisions, scroll up on your mouse wheel, and it creates more circular cuts on your tube. Left click to confirm that selection. And the next thing you'd want to do is kind of bend the stem a little bit. You want to bend it so it could actually kind of look like an actual stem. So press 3 on the keyboard again, and let me see, let's the proportional editing's back on, so that's good. Make sure this is still on, and we want to kind of, let me see, just get like the middle part, I guess, to bend, and we want it to bend, I guess it doesn't really matter, so we're going to press A to deselect everything, and press Z to go into X-ray view. Sometimes with Blender, if you press a keyboard shortcut, it doesn't really do what it's supposed to do. Like we pressed Z just now, and it didn't go directly into the X-ray view, which is annoying. So if it does that, press Z again, because you should be able to see through your mesh or model when you press Z. So once it looks like it's transparent, press C on your keyboard again to get circle select, and we're going to just choose these 3. Let's go up a little bit more. Choose these 3 vertices and left click once, And we're going to press Z again to get out of X-ray mode. And what we want to do, we want to make sure that when we bend the flower or bend the stem, that it kind of complements the way the petals are from the side. See, if we bent it from this point, it'll look somewhat broken because we would have pulled it on the y-axis, and that wouldn't look all that good. So let's hold down. If you have, you just got to make sure that you kind of, like I said before, complement the way the petals are in terms of the position of the petals to the stem. So for myself, excuse me, I'm going to left click and drag to move my viewport so that I'm looking at the petals, so to speak, from the side, like it is here. And with my proportional editing selected, I'm going to left click and drag here. I'm going to scroll up a little bit more. So that looks kind of bent, so to speak. And just eyeball it, it doesn't have to be perfect. And then press tab to get out of edit mode, and that looks good. Now at this point, your stem's going to be a little bit rough. Let me move this a little bit more so this can sit on top of the stem better. It's going to look a little bit rough. Your stem is. Left click on that. And to get it smooth again, just press W on your keyboard and shade smooth. Now at this point, our stem has no texture or color, but we just want to do a basic color. You can add a texture to it if you want, but I mean, you can't really see it. The part that you really want to see are the petals, not really the stem. And have the stem complement the flower petals themselves. A basic green would probably work, but that's good enough. So we're going to go down to our toolbar here, our panel here, and click on this icon, which is the material properties panel. Left click on that, and just press new. And then the base color, just click on that and turn it green. Let's make it kind of a dark green, kind of complements, kind of stands out a little bit more, and you've got that. And that's pretty much how you can make a flower pretty easily in Blender without having to go through the whole process of modeling the petals and the stem and things like that. And I guess we could take it a step further and do the leaves, because the leaves is the same process as the stem, but just to make it a complete tutorial, let's do the leaves also. So we have our add-on, which is importing images as planes. That's still activated. And we're going to go to File, Import, and I'll leave a link of this also in the description below this video also, so you guys can just apply it the same way. Let me click on Images as Planes, Blender Textures, and I've got some leaves in here. The key thing too with making the flower this way is to make sure that you download PNG images, because PNG images have alpha or transparent backgrounds, so you don't have to cut them out yourself or go through the process of trying to make the backgrounds transparent in Blender through the node system, because that's a little bit tedious too and a little bit complicated. Let me go down to here's some leaves right here. Oh, here's a good one. Doesn't have the stem at the bottom, but let's pick this one. Okay. Import that. Let me see, let's go to the top view by pressing 7. And the same thing as before. We're going to rotate the leaf so that it's looking up at us, so to speak. So with your leaf selected, it's R, Y, minus 90. And let's press 3. Let's scale this down a little bit. Let's drag it off to the side so we can work on it separately. I'll move Gizmo over there and press 7 on your keyboard again so you look at it from the top. And let's change our viewer shading to textures. And we're going to subdivide this also. So with this selected, press W on or press Tab on your keyboard, and then W to subdivide. Click subdivide, and let's subdivide this by, let's say 10, because it's not as big as the leaf. We don't want it to be as bent as the petals, on the flower. So press 10 in there, press enter, and let's minimize that. And what we're going to do now, let's stay in top view. We're going to drag this down, left click and drag on the hand gizmo there to move your viewport. We're going to bend this part down so the leaf can bend. And if you want to really take it to another level, you can fold it. But for this tutorial, we're just going to bend the top of the image of the leaf. So press A on your keyboard, press Alt and left click just like that to make sure proportional editing is on. Press 3 on the keyboard to go into side view, and we're going to drag down like that. And once again, just eyeball it, see what works for you. Let's move this up. Press tab on our keyboard again, and we're going to press W, shade smooth, and we're going to attach this leaf. Well, let's duplicate it first. Shift D and left click to confirm that that action. We're going to left click and drag this over. 7 to look at it from the top view. I'm going to reposition our window here, and we're going to rotate this. Once again, eyeball it, just press R. When you're in the top view, the way that Blender works when it comes to rotation, it rotates based upon your view. So since we're looking at it from the top view, it's going to rotate it on the Z-axis. So press R and just move your mouse so that it's pretty much the opposite of the first leaf, and left click and drag this over. Left click on that one, drag this one over. Now obviously these leaves don't match. You can probably make the stem lighter, which we can probably do when we get done with this tutorial. So press 1 to look at it from the front view. And let's left click and drag on our hand gizmo to move that, reposition our window here. Let's pull this back. I'm going to eyeball it with this. Let's pivot here, one again, and pull this back also. Now we're going to hold down our middle mouse button to try to pivot around our leaves here, and just still eyeball it to make sure that our leaves are pretty close to the stem here, and we're scrolling with our mouse with our middle mouse button to zoom in and out, and we're holding down our middle mouse button to kind of pivot around our scene here. Left click on this leaf also, and once again this is just eyeballing it, dragging on the left click and drag on the X and Y as needed. Same thing with this leaf also, X and Y. And our leaves are kind of, they're big, you can see that, but I mean you get the idea of how to attach the leaves to the stem. And to attach them, so to speak, just left click on that one, hold down Shift, left click on your stem, Control J to attach it, left click on that leaf, hold down Shift, left click on the stem again, Control J to attach that one. And there you go. That's your leaf there, your flowered, or that's not your leaf, that's your flower. And we're going to left click on our flower petals also, hold down Shift, left click on our stem, Control J to join all that together. And for our final representation, so to speak, let's join these windows together. Hover your mouse over your that divider there. Once it turns to a double arrow, left click, join arrows, left click to confirm that. And let's look at it in cycles, and that's it. So that's how you can make a flower in Blender fairly easy by just modifying textures or modifying images in Blender. And that's today's Blender Quickie for beginners. And I hope you've all learned something from watching this tutorial. And once again, thank you guys who have subscribed in the past, those of you who are subscribing now, and those of you who will subscribe in the future. And I will see you guys on the next one. All right, adios.